The continuous loan request for the executive arm of the federal government is far from being over. After a closed-door meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari, Senate President Ahmed Lawan told journalists yesterday in Abuja that the National Assembly will not approve frivolous loan requests from the executive, as it will always ask for details before any loan is approved. Lawan stated that due diligence will always be followed in approving loan requests from the executive arm of government. They, however, supported the idea of government sourcing loans to execute projects, saying the revenues are not available while Nigerians cannot be further taxed based on the challenges of low resource and revenue, and the economy cannot be kept stagnant. I mean, comments on this, Tundu?
That's a catch-22 presented to us by the President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan. Generally, personally against debt. You know, some people say there's good debt and there's bad debt. For me, just avoid it. But Ahmed Lawan makes the point here that we just need to raise that money some way. The Biden example, what Joe Biden is trying to do in America with his $3 trillion infrastructure plan, which he's going to raise the money for by taxing the super rich and corporations. According to Ahmed Lawan, that's not really an option for Nigeria. And he was talking more about ordinary Nigerians who cannot be taxed further because their revenue is already low enough. And you have experts such as the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, saying that Nigeria does not have a debt problem, that we have a revenue problem. I'm not sure I'm convinced by that argument. It is worrying because one day these debts have to be repaid, and who is going to repay those debts? Future generations of Nigerians who have been committed to this. And, you know, we always have, every so often, these conversations about imperialism and, you know, the colonial era and down with the Queen of England and all this other nonsense. And everybody is completely missing the neo-imperialism that's going on right before our very eyes. This is the new form of colonialism, and our new colonial masters are from the East. It's very worrying as far as I'm concerned.
Dr. Bassey?
Well, I mean, the Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, after meeting with the President before the President's plan to travel out of the country for about 3 weeks, close to 3 weeks, for medical reasons, came out of the meeting with the President and spoke with the press. And it was at that press interaction that he made the point that Nigeria is broke. We hear this all the time. Sometimes we're told Nigeria is broke. Sometimes we're told Nigeria is insolvent, and economists try to split hairs about whether the country is broke or the country is insolvent. But what was established by the President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, is that clearly Nigeria has revenue problems, and that whether we like it or not, Nigeria must continue to borrow money and incur debt to be able to provide infrastructure for the people of Nigeria. And you know that this has been a controversial issue. Many Nigerians saying, look, Nigeria is borrowing money to fund inefficiency. But here is the Senate President saying that whether we like it or not, the country must continue to borrow. Now, what I think is very important in terms of what the Senate President said, this is the same Senate President who, upon the assumption of office in 2019, said, look, anything the President brings will be endorsed because he personally believes in the President, and he will lead a National Assembly that will believe in the President and approve anything that the President brings. But the depth of the problem that we face is that this ally, this self-confessed sycophant of the President, has now suddenly showed up to say, no, going forward, whatever the presidency brings in terms of debt requests, revenue requests, will be scrutinized. I think it's a major moment of anagnosis for the Senate President, Dr. Ahmed Lawan. Anagnosis in Greek mythology, it means awareness, you know, enlightenment, and all of that. So for me, at that level, it is a great development that we now have an Ahmed Lawan who is beginning to speak the truth after his initial bout of hypocrisy and sycophancy. That's the first point. Now, this same Senate President made some other points. He promised us that the petroleum industry bill, which is something we've been talking about repeatedly, either on this program or elsewhere, as something that has to be dealt with, that has to be passed. He now says by Tuesday next week, there will be some progress. that they are dotting the I's and crossing the T's with regard to this petroleum industry bill. This is a bill that has been before the National Assembly for about 2 decades. So the Senate President now coming around at a press conference within the premises of the villa to say some progress will be made. I think that will be of great interest and great consolation, particularly to the people of the Niger Delta and other stakeholders who think that this is a bill that has been there for too long and has become more or less a source of stomach infrastructure for people who do not deserve to go in that direction. The third point that was made by Senator Ahmad Lawan was taxation. And he was saying, no, he doesn't support the idea that to get revenue, that Nigerians have to be taxed, and that Nigerians have been taxed enough. And I think that, well, it may sound populist, but it sounds like an intelligent point. That, look, if we manage our resources better, then you don't need to tax the people of Nigeria more as a source of revenue. Already, there is a multiplicity, there is a duplication of taxes, with the poor holding the wrong end of the stick. Now, finally, he also made a point that, look, we should not be surprised that foreign investors are not coming to Nigeria. Because if we don't get our security architecture, let me use that notorious, phrase, right? That notorious cliche. If we don't get it right, then foreign investors will not come to Nigeria. I want to congratulate Senator Ahmad Lawan, because I think he spoke in an unusually very truthful, and forthright manner yesterday. Previously, before now, what we have been getting from him have been, sycophantic statements. But all of a sudden, he has woken up, and I think he needs to be congratulated for speaking his mind truthfully about the situation in the country. What he needs to do going further is to provide the necessary leadership, to provide the legislation for moving Nigeria forward.
Thank you so much, Dr. Batiantunu, for that. That's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rota Sudiri, Michael Wilson, Adiso Abora, Aaron Akerjola to give us updates on Africa's global business and COVID-19 supporting activities across the globe. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rota Sudiri is here to give us an African business update. Over to you, Rotas.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Rufai. The African Business Update picks up where we left off yesterday with the petroleum industry bill and the need for the federal government to urgently get this passed. Unfortunately, there is still opposition. Now, in fact, in today's This Day newspaper, you'll see an article that refers to opposition coming from SNEPCO, the Shell Nigeria Exploration and Production Company, right? And essentially, there was a forum, an online forum held by the British Chamber of Commerce, which was attended by Shell. And the managing director, Mr. Bayo Ojulari, expressed some of the opposition that Shell has to the gas portion of the petroleum industry bill. Specifically, they refer to two things. One, the fiscal measures in the gas portion of the petroleum industry bill are a disincentive to oil and gas companies in Nigeria. When we talk about fiscal measures, taxes and so on and so forth, they are saying that those fiscal measures are not encouraging with respect to pricing for them to be able to produce gas here. Secondly, the federal government of Nigeria wants the oil and gas companies to meet a domestic threshold before they export gas out of the country. What Shell is saying is that is an emotional argument and not based on market dynamics. As far as liquefied natural gas exports are concerned out of the country, they are more lucrative to the companies. As far as exporting out of the country is concerned, more lucrative than having to make sure or make them or compel them to, first of all, meet domestic capacity before exporting. Plus, they also say that's not done anywhere else. So those are the two main things that Shell is saying, and this I believe is being this is a belief that is being held by the other oil and gas companies. So, and plus, Tundu, as you mentioned yesterday, there's also the existing matter that has been around for a while now with the host communities the 2% allocation versus 10% that they want. That they're saying the 2% is an insult, basically, and they deserve much more from the federal government. That's, of course, the oil allocations from oil-producing states. So, look, the question is this now. Can the federal government not come to a compromise, right? I believe Michael Wilson will be talking about Joe Biden's infrastructure agreement with Republicans. I think it's a $1.1 trillion agreement. We'll talk about it on the Global Business Report. There is a compromise in the United States. They found a way. This is, Democrats and Republicans that have been bitterly divided over spending. They found a way to come to a compromise. So is there not a way, when you think about how much is being lost year over year, to make gas production more market determined for the companies and also for increasing allocations for the host communities? Can the federal government of Nigeria not find a way to get this fixed so that we can move along with the petroleum industry bill? Also, food prices in the country. Let's moving on now to food prices. Nairametrics, which is a publication here in Nigeria, looked at food prices in June and saw massive spikes, almost double-digit spikes for rice, beans, garri. We continue to see food price increases here. If you look at, we've got a food inflation chart, in fact, an inflation chart and a food inflation chart, comparing Nigeria to Ghana, South Africa, and Senegal. You will see Nigeria's double-digit food inflation levels for headline inflation, 70% versus single digits for the other countries, and also food inflation at 22%. I mean, look at Senegal, for instance. It's 1.6%, 1.3% headline inflation, 1.6% food. So, look, there's a lot that we're facing here in terms of disposable income being squeezed for the average Nigerian because of food prices. On the macro level, on the higher level, the petroleum industry needing to be passed. Urgency, urgency, urgency. A lot needs to be done here.
All right. Great insight as always, Rotus. Real quickly, it's obvious. Somebody was telling me yesterday that a basket of tomato now is 35,000 naira. If you want to share that into two, it's 17,000 naira. That's to show you the mammoth increase in food price all over the country. And it's taking its effect on the toll of people's pockets. I mean, people can barely buy food. I think there was a video that circulated, but some people have tried to debunk it. How people can't buy one full tuber of yam any longer. How two people now have to share one tuber of yam, and they put it into two for them, and they give them two different portions. And that's how bad things are. And no matter what it is, we must try to bring this down as quick as possible. It's alarming for me, Rotus, that a bill that has taken 20 years is still having all of these problems when it's close to passage. It's obvious. They're definitely not going to pass this bill this year.
Yeah, but then it's because it's taken that long. A lot of the provisions in that bill, even the general spirits of the bill, is probably verging on the edge of obsolescence at this point. Gas was not the big thing when this bill was initially drafted. Climate change issues, the end of the oil era, which we're now seeing, wasn't even considered at the time this bill was drafted. But my issue is that we talked about this yesterday, and I showed some sympathy towards the host communities wanting 10% of the petroleum profits, not 2.5%. Why wasn't all of this discussed during the last public hearing a few months ago? Why is all this coming now?
They were fighting then.
Yes.
Well,
Rotus, yeah, I remember that.
About food prices, you will notice that in April and May, the National Bureau of Statistics kept telling us that food inflation was going down. Headline inflation, core inflation, all of these, either urban inflation or rural inflation, we were told that all of this was going down. And usually I ask you the question, how about the reality of the streets? The reality of the streets, as indicated by that Nairametrics food prices watch, I think they do it on a bi-monthly basis. You know, it's clearly that the fact of the statistics is different from the reality on the streets. Even ordinary maize, yellow maize, it has gone up. When you go and try to buy a maize that we used to buy for 50 naira, they will tell you it's 20 naira. The first thing I will check is my teeth. How will my teeth descend on a 150 naira corn? How will it manage it? The same teeth that used to eat a 10 naira corn. Melon seeds, it has gone up. Tomatoes have gone up. A bag of rice is no longer 23,000 naira. It's over 23,000 naira now. So the prices of food items in the market have gone up. And these are basic items, including cereals, basic staple foods that people consume. And the reality is out there. You just need to go to the market to test it. Yesterday, I tried to buy ordinary serviette, those things they sell in traffic that you use to clean your hands. 1 month ago, I bought it for 250 naira. That's the standard price, those small packs that you see in traffic as you move. Yesterday, they said it was 500 naira. The thing has improved by 100% in less than 1 month. I checked with 3, 4, 5 different persons. At the end of the day, I resolved, henceforth, I'll be using water and soap to wash my hands. And that is the situation with every other item out there. So Nigerians have been impoverished. You cannot buy any basic thing again. So that is the reality out there. And the question for our lawmakers, what's his name? Ahmad Lawan, the Senate president. He was complaining yesterday, Nigeria is broke, Nigeria is poor, Nigeria is insolvent. No, we don't need leaders coming out to wring their hands and to lament as if they are in Sodom and Gomorrah. They should do what they need to do to rescue this economy. There was one president in the US who said, economy stupid. I don't remember his name. That is the situation where we are in Nigeria today. And they've been talking about fuel. I was telling my driver yesterday, the day they increased fuel price to 256 naira, and we cannot buy melon seed, we cannot buy tomato, we cannot, even common Gary solution that ordinary people take. If you want to buy a cup of Gary now, you will be surprised how much it is. Gary that we will mix with sugar and granite. It has become expensive. So please, somebody needs to sit down. There is an economic advisory council. Maybe they should move out of the textbook and think out of the box and think of, okay, how can the ordinary Nigerian be able to feed and eat? That, for me, is the point about the food inflation of the streets, which is the subject you brought this morning.
Well, thank you, Rotes. On that really sobering note, we move on to more business updates from Michael Wilson, joining us now from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Morning. I said it was going to be a fairly data-free week. It has proved thus. However, in the United States, the big news is that the US President Joe Biden has secured a preliminary deal for a $1.2 trillion infrastructure package. It's not the whole deal. It's not the full deal. There's a lot to do, but it'll still pay for a lot of stuff to move around, a lot of infrastructure to be built and so on. Challenges still remain, though, for $1.8 trillion worth of social spending gains and supposed tax on the wealthy as well. So that's still to get through. So we're not there yet. So it's not the whole deal, but it's part of the deal. So Asia markets then really taking their cue from that. Slight gains. The S&P 500 last night gained about 0.5% after all that. And those US futures have been helping Asia markets, quite honestly, even the Dow Jones. A broad rally in Asia as we go into the weekend. The Nikkei up 0.75%, Kospi up about 0.75% as well. Both Australia and New Zealand, I have to tell you, remain on Delta variant COVID-19 tenterhooks today. The parts and wider Sydney, for example, experiencing further lockdowns. Let's go to Japan, and shareholders actually voted out the Toshiba board chairman. We knew that something was going on. There's been a long-running dispute in that company. Osamu Nagayama, they call this a big win for corporate governance in Japan. Shareholders said that it was a rebuke, really, for the company after shareholders said that it was found to have colluded with the government in suppressing foreign investor interest. A lot of detail, obviously, to come out of that, but anyway, the chairman of the board has gone. As far as US is concerned, let's just recap very, very briefly. As I said, Dow futures up about 100 points. Nike's stock rose 14.1% in extended trading after the company reported earnings of 93 pence a share, outpacing an estimate of 43 cents a share. Revenue came in at 12.34 billion. Today's highlight, the United States, will be the personal income and spending, and the core PCE price index for May, I think, and the markets agree, that it's a far more valuable way of looking at inflationary pressures within the United States, and that's something which may give some sort of indications and maybe some jitters on this Friday as we head into the weekend. Overall, as we've said for the past 5 days, it's been a sort of day traders market. There's been very little to actually give a much longer picture, but that bipartisan US infrastructure deal has actually done a great deal to keep the markets up as they go into the weekend. UK and EU roundup, and Europe and the UK have helped their equities recover from their taper nerves. German EFO business climate and expectations hitting multi-year highs. Bank of England did nothing really to either recognise inflationary pressures, although saying inflation would get higher. A lot of people asking big questions about the Bank of England now, but we'll leave those for another day. I happen to think they are slightly behind the curve, but there we are. UK travel bosses are very unhappy about the government's so-called expansion of the green list. Arrivals from 16 places, including something which goes a lot on holidays. Strange Balearic Islands will not have to quarantine from 4 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, but there's more detail of that to come. British Airways and other travel bosses are saying thanks very much for all that, but it's still, as far as they're concerned, going to be a bit of a missed and lost summer. Commodities, oil markets. Now we've got OPEC Plus next week, so really in a holding pattern about that, and gold remains relatively sidelined. A bit of hedging maybe. I'm looking at about 17, just nudging $1,800 an ounce, but probably not. So next week then, let's look forward to that. It's going to be very much more data to get our teeth into, which I'll be delighted to help you with when we talk on Monday. That's the week. Have a good weekend.
All right, great, Michael. Thank you so much for that. Real quickly. The British central bank, I know it's not the central bank, but the British Reserve Bank kept interest rates at 0.1 yesterday. But the truth is, I was reading a report this morning that says there was a lot of disputes in arriving at that. There were some people in the Monetary Policy Committee that felt that interest rates should have been raised from that yesterday's announcement. And the House was divided in the MPC. I mean, Andrew Bailey's coming out with a very bullish outlook. What's your take on this? Because everybody feels the bank has let them down. They should have raised interest rates yesterday.
No, too soon. No, I don't think so. I wouldn't have raised interest rates if I'd been on that, and I'm not on the committee. No, discussion, no problem about that. A powerful chairman, they have Andrew Bailey there to keep the members into control. And Andy Haldane, if you remember, the chief economist who I was talking about yesterday, he's now left. He was talking about this is a real danger of inflation in this country. No, too soon to raise them yesterday would have sent all the wrong signals to the markets. No, what the central banks have said almost unanimously is that what they're going to do is they're going to earn their money and they're going to look through these spikes, not saying that inflation is not going to rise, not saying that interest rates are not going to rise. Of course they are. Interest rates are not going to go any lower. I think we've got all that now. There is going to be some tightening, but not yesterday. No, I disagree with that completely. Maybe towards the end of the year, maybe into 2022, who knows? We'll know a lot more about the way things are going. If you look back, for example, at the US jobs figures yesterday, again, they didn't give a definite picture of what's going on. We've got too many snapshots, too much noise. We need calm heads to think about this, and I think central banks will probably act in unison when they do it, but it won't be, certainly it should not have been yesterday.
Well, Michael, I think you've been vindicated again. The head of the Citibank Group is saying that it's better for staff to work from office, and I recall that has been your position. And some other companies are also calling people back. Stanley Morgan, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, they're all saying it's better to come to the office. But can employers really force their staff to be in the office? Is there an issue here also in the face of the pandemic about human rights? And very quickly, in the United States, the infrastructure plan that you draw attention to. Yes, you said it's not finished business yet, and I agree with you. But are you skeptical or optimistic about the $6 trillion pending spending plan that President Biden needs to get a bipartisan consensus around it?
I think, as we've noted before, the political political difficulties are going to be immense to get that through. And again, as you quite rightly say, it's not a done deal. The far more important point, I mean, we can talk about infrastructure deals until the cows come home, but basically what we're also talking about is some help for those less fortunate. Now, look, if imagine you're President Biden and you're looking at the picture in the United States, there are 9.1 million job vacancies in the United States. You've got Amazon upping their minimum wage level to $15 an hour, which is far higher than the minimum wages in many states in the United States. How will you get that population back to work? What will the jobs actually be like? I don't know. That's the complication. So I think there's going to be a lot of discussion before that actually happens. As far as going back to work is concerned, I mean, there are lots of complications here. Perhaps some of the younger staff have not had access to vaccinations yet. The JP Morgan stance with if you've got vaccination, then you can come back to the office. What I was thinking about as far as Citi was concerned, and I was listening to the woman from Citi yesterday on our local domestic service here. She was saying is that it's forced employers to look at where people work best. Do your responsible employers work better at home? Some of them do, some of them don't. Do we need face-to-face? Yes, we do. No, we don't. Do some of the younger employees need office time to get their careers going? Yes, they do. It's an incredibly complicated picture. I think we'll have a hybrid system for quite a way ahead, to be honest.
I wanted your take on the future of activist investors. We recently talked about what happened with ExxonMobil. This morning you've talked about the Toshiba case. What's next?
Well, I mean, I feel that I don't know what's next, but I think what's important is that shareholders themselves. Well, there are two sorts of activist shareholders. There are private equity funds that want to move into companies and say, you know, you're not achieving what you're achieving. We could do better than this, and the board's crap and the board's rubbish, and we need to get rid of it. And off you go. That's fine. Get all that. No, but the likes of you and me, the small investors who are perhaps in companies, I think we should take advantage and take power from what's happened with Toshiba, for example, and that shareholders can actually make a difference if they feel there's something. It should be what the non-executive directors do, but they clearly aren't.
All right.
Well, Michael,
okay.
Oh,
Okay. Dr. Mati, go ahead.
well, there's something I'd always wanted to bring up with you, and that is the ruling of the Supreme Court of the United States, 8-1, on the issue of child labor, forced labor, in Ivory Coast, and particularly, which produces about 70% of cocoa that is used for chocolate. And, you know, with the case involving Cargill and the other company, the Supreme Court said, look, U.S. companies are not liable, although there is a 17th century alien tort law under which the same U.S. Supreme Court could have held, American companies liable for human rights abuses in terms of slavery. That's the word. In Ivory Coast particularly. This was a case that was put forward by 6 persons from Mali who said they were false. But what do you think in that regard? Because I know other countries hold their multinationals responsible for abuses in other parts of the world.
Okay, Doctor, do you use a mobile phone?
Yes, I do, obviously. Yes.
You do. Right. Do you know where the precious metals for that mobile phone are actually mined? Do you know what conditions those workers actually work under? Would that make you get rid of your mobile phone?
I know there are issues in the Democratic Republic of Congo and the whole of
Correct.
that axis, yes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the problem, isn't it? If you're getting into ethical investing, that's a whole different ballgame. I'm with you as far as child labour is concerned. Of course, it's disgraceful. It's also, I mean, will you be getting rid of your laptop and getting a new one in the not too distant future? Guess you will. Where will it be dismantled? And who will be putting their little fingers to get the precious metals out of that computer? Will you know about that? No, you won't. Do you care about it? You probably don't. No, if you want to go to the absolute bottom line on this, then the kind of resources that we take for granted would not be available. I mean, I'm with you. I think that companies should somehow address all this. But the fact of the matter is that if we're going to address it, we will, down the line, be paying very much more for what we consider to be relatively cheap in the future. I hope that's the way ahead.
Okay, Michael. My question is, a lot of people think Rishi Sunak is stuck now. Unemployment rates are trickling down, 4.6% now in the UK, looking good, but there are still 3 million people on furlough. And the big question is, how is it going to take them off furlough? Most bosses are saying, this is the best we can do. We've started up the engine of the economy. It's doing well, but 3 million people on furlough. When is Rishi Sunak going to take that decision? And how is he going to do it? Because the bosses are saying it's best he keeps those people on furlough. But Britain is still going to borrow more money. I suspect they're going to borrow 235 billion this year. How is he going to do that?
I have to say, I agree with you. I think that the borrowing of the money is the more difficult problem. And if you can tie that in with the rising interest rates as well, what he tends to do, he is a politician. He tends to dance around all these things because he was interviewed quite strongly. In fact, we ran the interview, didn't we, on the show? Do you remember last week with GB News? He was dancing around some fairly direct questions about when are you actually going to start thinking about debt, and he sort of pushed it off into the future, pushed it off into what they call in this country the autumn statement, or used to be called that. I don't know whether they'll have it now. They probably will, but that's what it is. So what he's doing is he's pushing all these issues aside. As far as unemployment is concerned, I think there has always been a rump in this country of about 1.1 million long-term unemployed. I don't see that changing, quite honestly. But you're quite right. Furlough complicates that. I don't know what the answer is, but is gradually going to have to taper it down because employers are saying quite rightly, hang on a second, we can't pay these people what you've been paying them because we won't have a business. These are big problems which need to be sorted out. That's how chancellors earn their money.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Michael Wilson, for joining us again this morning. Enjoy your weekend. It's Friday. We'll take a short break now.
Right, welcome back. For updates on COVID-19 pandemic, Adeso Omoro joins us now. Adeso, great to have you.
Thank you, Rufai. Good morning. Good morning, Tundu, and good morning, Dr. Abati. Well, the coronavirus has sickened over 177 million people. 179, that's the latest data from the Johns Hopkins University there on your screen. At least 3.8 million people have unfortunately died, and over 2.7 billion vaccine doses have been administered. I must say a vast majority of people have also recovered from the virus, with some of them having symptoms of the virus even after recovery for weeks and months, otherwise known as long COVID. Well, here in Nigeria, 26 new cases were reported. Lagos reported the most infections, with 13 new infections in the last 24 hours. No COVID-related deaths have been recorded in Nigeria in the last 24 hours as well. Vaccination also continues against COVID-19 across Nigeria. In the last 24 hours, according to the latest data by the NPHCDA, over 40,000 people received the second jab yesterday, bringing the total to 1,050,793 people who have received a second dose, meaning those numbers of people now have what we refer to as full immunity from the vaccines. And coronavirus cases are spreading more rapidly, hitting harder, and projected to surpass previous waves in a matter of weeks. A warning coming from the heads of the WHO and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention on the continent. According to John Nkagesong, 20 countries on the continent are in the grip of a devastating third wave. He describes it as a brutal wave that the continent is now winning. He's also calling for more vaccines to arrive as soon as possible. On her part, Dr. Mashitizo Moeti, who is the WHO Regional Head for Africa, says a combination of factors, including weak observance of public health measures, increased social interaction and movement, as well as spread of variants, apparently the news. So Dr. Moeti says that the Delta variant has now been detected in 14 African countries. But she's also raising concerns over possible restrictions of Africans by countries based on vaccine status. Dr. Moeti was citing the European Union, where she says a COVID-19 passport system for vaccination, testing, and recovery will take effect from July 1. Dr. Moeti says only 4 of the 8 vaccines listed by the WHO for emergency use are recognized by the European Medicines Agencies for the passport system. And Zimbabwe. Let's go to Zimbabwe, where the government has designated 11 rural areas across 3 provinces COVID-19 hotspots. This week, after a sharp rise in increases, the measures come as the country battles to contain a third wave of coronavirus in Zimbabwe. The provinces going into strict lockdown are Mashonaland West, Masvingo, and Bulawayo provinces. A second nationwide lockdown was actually announced in mid-June in Zimbabwe, but restrictions in these hotspots are tougher than elsewhere in the country. Many businesses will have to close at 3 p.m. instead of 6 p.m. This week alone, Zimbabwe has recorded 1,239 new infections. And finally, this morning, a report, according to Reuters news agency, says the World Health Organization is forecasting that people most vulnerable, such as the elderly, will need to get an annual vaccine booster to be protected against variants. At the moment, vaccine makers Moderna and Pfizer, with their German counterparts, of course, BioNTech, have been vocal in their view that the world will soon need booster shots to maintain high levels of immunity. But scientists say the evidence for this is still unclear.
Great insight on this one. Two things I want to talk about. Number one, there was a report that came out yesterday in the UK that says over 2 million people that had COVID are suffering long COVID.
Yeah.
In fact, Trade Union Congress in the UK is saying now that there's a possibility of listing people that suffer long COVID as disabled people in the workplace so that their employers can know how to maneuver, because these people are suffering fatigue, they're suffering tiredness, and they're not performing optimally. I mean, that's something that is really scary. We've not had a lot of cases in Nigeria of people suffering long COVID. Maybe I don't know of them, but it's something that is really scary. A second thing I'll talk about is the fact that out of Wuhan, there are now reports that says, I think Financial Times were reporting this morning, that says that the Wuhan lab actually deleted the data for the first sample cases of COVID, they had. It deleted all of that data. And that, flaws that argument that this is zoonotic. It's beginning to become obvious every day that COVID is not zoonotic, that it didn't come out of that wet lab in a wet market in Wuhan, but it came out of that Wuhan lab. And they can't keep telling us lies about this.
Unfortunately, I haven't seen that report, but
it's on FT this morning.
But you recall that we are also waiting for reports from the intelligence community in the United States. A 3 months deadline given to them by President Joe Biden. As for the long COVID, yes, even in the UK, they've set up a special government agency to look into that. Even children are said to be suffering from long COVID because they have tiredness and they're not functioning optimally daily. So it's a hidden pandemic within this pandemic itself.
Well, very quickly, I mean, one of the outcomes of the G7 summit is the resolution, the consensus reached by the leading countries of the world that, look, another study of the origins of the virus will be necessary. That will be science-driven, expert-driven, WHO-driven, away from what was done previously in the early months of the year, which was more or less influenced by the Chinese. So the research as to the exact origins of the virus will seem to be continuing. But I think of urgent importance will seem to be the alarm that has been raised by Dr. Moeti and Dr. Nkesasong.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Well,
yes.
Whatever. About the fact that by July, we're likely to have an upsurge, a third wave, across African countries. And at the moment, about 12 African countries have been affected, including Congo, including Uganda, including Zimbabwe, including South Africa. Now, what does that say to us in Nigeria? What it means is that, look, no African country, with all the challenges that we face in terms of financing, in terms of logistics, in terms of response, in terms of vaccine hesitancy, no African country should fold its arms and assume that this COVID-19 has gone away. And that brings me to the issue of Zimbabwe that you raised. Yes. And by the way, the Delta variant has been identified, observed.
14 countries.
In Ghana, even in Ghana, that is just next door. And what we're told by the Ghanaian authorities is that it doesn't respond very well to the Sputnik 5 and the AstraZeneca vaccines. That in itself should be a wake-up call, both for government and Nigerians. Yes, the AstraZeneca, they say it can prevent hospitalization.
Yes.
But that's as far as it can go. I know that. Now, very quickly, in Zimbabwe, now they say the figures have gone up. This week alone, Tuesday, Wednesday, over 1,000 cases in 1 week, 2,924 cases. But right there in Zimbabwe, the authorities are dropping the ball. You know, the bars are still open. People are still moving around. Nobody is observing the basic protocols. So why is it that in Africa, even in the face of danger, in the face of death, there is this death wish that the people continue to demonstrate? I think that the authorities in Zimbabwe will have to wake up. The authorities in Uganda will also have to wake up. As the authorities in Congo will also have to wake up. And here in Nigeria, we should not wait till the third wave visits us.
Well, I learned a lot about human nature during this pandemic and the way people are stubbornly clinging to their habits in spite of a potentially deadly pandemic, Dr. Abati. That's what's happening in Zimbabwe. That's what's happening all over the world. If that wasn't the case, we will not be talking about third waves. It's a total disaster. But to your point about EU passports, Adeswa,
yes.
I'm sure you've read that report that Mongolia, Seychelles, and Bahrain right now might be regretting using Chinese vaccines because they've proved ineffective. That's why the EU is particular about exactly what vaccine that you were given, not just that you were vaccinated, because they all have different levels of efficacy.
Indeed, Tundu. And you recall that the vaccine from China that we have seen so far have some of the lowest percentage of immunity promised so far. And just last week, some days ago, we were talking about why Taiwan decided not to take vaccines from China. So those countries are deciding a reversal of the decision to take such vaccines. If they're not going to provide enough immunity, then it beats the purpose of vaccinating the people in the first instance.
And please, for all Japanese people out there, listen to your emperor. He says no Olympics. Just listen to the man. Please. Thank you. Adeswa, really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.